Welcome to Relational Lives. Today we are really honoured to have a guest with us who is Julie Russell. Julie Russell is going to talk about her son Fraser, who was born with a life-limiting illness, and how her experience of a children's hospice was so important to the care and the support that Fraser, her son, and her family got during his lifetime. And it was an extremely moving episode.
Very moving. Yeah, if you do listen to this, you might want some tissues nearby, because it was very touching in many, many ways.
It is, and also if you've got small children, because Fraser was just 2 when he died, just be mindful that might bring up some things for you. Yeah.
If you feel like you might be sensitive to this, maybe choose a time that works, or save it for another time. Beautiful story, very touching, very moving, and it was just a pleasure an honour.
It really was an honour, absolute honour, and it's a story not just about the fact that there's this about death. It's also very much about life, and how to maximise that, and that's kind of making it very. I thought it was just so meaningful and a message for all of us.
Live in the moment, live for now.
So here, come with us and listen to this amazing episode.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy it.
Oh, and remember to like, subscribe, follow, and all that stuff that we usually say, which sounds very shallow compared to what we're talking about with Jules. So Jules, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really pleased to be here.
And really lovely that you've come in person, because I know you've travelled quite a way today, so thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been fine to come down here.
Did you get caught in the traffic? I said, didn't I? I said, she's going to get caught in traffic.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a minute ago, I got caught in some traffic. It was fine.
Good. So thank you. So what we thought would be really nice for everybody to hear is just if you could talk about the story of Fraser's diagnosis and how perhaps that impacted your family life from the beginning.
Okay. So, my first child, our first child, my husband and my first child was called Fraser. He was born with a really rare genetic disorder. Now, we didn't know at the time that he was going to be born with this condition. It came as a complete surprise to us. As far as I was concerned, I had a normal pregnancy and pretty much normal birth. It went a little bit wrong towards the end, but we got through it, and there wasn't any signs, even initially, after he was born, that there was anything wrong with him.
So you're normal first-time parents, excited to have a baby?
Hugely excited.
No signs of...
No, none at all. And with the kind of condition that he had, it meant that he was sort of living off my energy supply, as it were. So it was going to start showing really after he was delivered, and a few hours after birth, which is what happened. He started to not do very well, and was taken into our local SCBU, just a special care baby unit, just to keep an eye on him. Now, I was tired. I'd actually had an emergency C-section in the end, and that was nothing to do with his condition. That was just what had to happen. And I remember it being the hottest day of the year, and the ward being completely full, and it's just chaotic and not really knowing what was going on, and being concerned but told not to worry too much. These things can kind of happen. But very quickly he deteriorated. Within about 24 hours his breathing really got laboured, and he was showing all sorts of signs of being quite poorly. And so it was suggested that he needed to go up to the neonatal intensive care unit at St Thomas's Hospital in London for special care. So he was sort of rushed up there, and then life sort of changed at that moment, really, because it was like, okay, this is really serious now. We need to really try and get to grips with what's going on. And having had an emergency C-section, I was kind of
fairly stuck in some ways.
Well, yeah, but we had to go. So you just sort of dose yourself up on painkillers, I suppose, and just head up there as quickly as you can, just to.
So it must have been such, I imagine, terrifying time.
It was hugely terrifying, and I hadn't really seen him much. I hadn't really connected with him much. And when he was in the special care baby unit at our local hospital, I just was kept out of it. I wasn't allowed to go and see him. So
what were you feeling at that time?
Really anxious and confused, and really, I think the draw to be really, really close to him was there. There was a sort of a bond almost immediately. You kind of felt that sort of love, even though he wasn't there. And I just was determined, absolutely determined to, as was my husband, to be with him.
Yeah.
And to find out what was going on. So we got ourselves up there. I don't know how we did it really. And the next 24 hours, 36 hours were really hard. And all sorts of teams were brought in to look at him, and they were sort of saying, well, we don't really know what's going on, but he's really, really sick. He's really, really sick. And at one stage they came in and they said to us, he's got about 10% chance of surviving. This is not going to be good. You need to probably come in and
really preparing.
Yeah.
For the fact that
and
I
just couldn't face that reality at the time. It was just, he's just been here for the briefest amount of time, and although he had amazing intervention and everyone was doing what they could, he was just slipping away, and we didn't really understand why.
Yeah. And nobody was giving you answers as to
not
why.
Really, no.
We don't know what's happening.
We don't know what's happening, but he's really, really, really sick, and on all these tubes, and when we did see him, he was just, artificially sort of puffed up with all the drugs and everything like that. It was just horrifying, actually.
Unbearable.
And I look at, and I still, if I do look at those photos now, I find it quite astonishing to think what he went through, and actually therefore what we went through by just witnessing it, I suppose. But then he was with a great care, I have to say, of the metabolic team up at St Thomas's and the Evelina, actually, putting their heads together and coming up with, we could try this. He did pull through, and we ended up staying for about another 2-3 weeks up in London. He had to have a biopsy just to get some more information, I suppose, about what was going on with him. And he slowly came round, I suppose. But we could tell that he wasn't quite right, really, and he was quite weak. Right. And, they were going to need further investigations. So eventually we came back to our local hospital for a couple of weeks, and then we went into the community, I suppose, back to what everybody else did with this child that was very fragile but not really understanding.
So they still didn't have an answer as to what was...
It took months for them to try and, work out what was going on. They kept saying, well, it's probably a metabolic disorder, it's probably a genetic metabolic disorder, but we don't know which one. We may not know which one. And in the end, it turned out it was a description. It wasn't even a known condition. He just had a description of what was wrong with him.
Because it was so
that
rare.
So rare. Yeah.
What was that like? When you were kind of, you're talking about that sort of experience at the hospital and all these people and kind of not, fighting in a way there alongside, I guess. But you were saying then coming back into sort of home with this child who'd just gone through all of this. What was that like?
It was really surreal, I suppose, because, we'd been in an NCT class before, and everyone had their babies, some on the same day actually, and they were all fine and doing well, and all the things that they had planned was happening. And one thing my husband and I sort of said to ourselves was that what you realise that plan is only ever a plan. It can go very, very, very wrong or differently to how you expected it.
You never expect that, do you?
No, you
especially
don't.
as a first-time parent, you just hope that everything's going to be okay.
And I think it was weird because I went for, I think it was a 6-week health care check, or health visitor or whatever check. And we hadn't seen any health visitors or midwives or anything. We just bypassed all of that completely because we were up in a London hospital. Yeah. And I remember her saying to me, here's this sort of postnatal depression questionnaire that you'll have to fill in. And she said, you've probably had some comment about 70 years and 10 of experience now of you feel like you've lived a life already, so none of this will be relevant to you. And sort of just passed it, or sort of stayed,
sort of dismissing
dismissed it, and never actually said, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You've been through the mill, or, you know, how is life? I mean, looking at Fraser, he was a sick child, actually. He was a skinny little thing. Just, it was kind of passed off as if to say, we're really not going to deal with you. You're being looked after by the big hospital. We'd rather just not. So, you know, just fill the questionnaire in. Doesn't really matter, but then off you go.
It would have been better if you hadn't had that appointment, wouldn't it?
But it was, you know, at the time, it felt really odd, but I didn't know how to process it because I hadn't had anything to compare it to. And I also didn't have anybody else around me who had been through that experience to compare it, you know, to talk to it about. So how did I know that that wasn't the most supportive thing?
Yeah.
True.
It felt kind of wrong, but, you know, I had so much other things to have to deal with. So it's only looking back at it now, you think to yourself, and all the other experiences we had, particularly within the local community, about them sort of avoiding getting involved, sort of saying, well, you know, the big hospitals in London are looking after you, so therefore we don't really need to go there because we'd rather not because it's too scary.
So leaving you very much as an island on your own.
Completely isolated.
With everybody else, I guess, who had their babies and everything had been okay, kind of carrying on with their lives. Yeah,
and I sort of expressed before that it sort of felt like we were the other side of the track. You know, life moves on, but suddenly you're sort of the other side of the track, and you can see how life is moving on for everybody else, and you don't wish any harm for them or anything. You're glad that I'm glad that all my NCT group were fine and everything like that. But we were just seeing it from the other side, and it was very isolating. And it felt, you know, where were we going to fit in, and what was the support we were going to need? What was the support he was going to need? Where was our sense of community? And all these sort of big questions. And at the same time, there's sort of like, well, you know, if the diagnosis comes in that they think he probably is life limited, what does that mean for us? Because actually, how are we going to handle his life? What are the decisions that we're going to make about his life for him?
So that was what was being sort of spoken about, was it? That this might be a life-limiting condition. And,
you know, that they would only be able to support the symptoms. That's another phrase that the system uses, isn't it? They'd only be able to support
so much symptoms. Not known of this, all that unknowing of all of those things that are so important, and them not knowing as well. Really tough.
Yeah. And, you know, this is the first time you're doing this, right? And you just think...
It's hard enough anyway, isn't it, really, when you don't know. With your firstborn, like you're saying, you expect this kind of everything to kind of go okay, and then when things don't, even more difficult.
Well, you know, our lives as we had it, I had my own company. I was a lighting designer and I run my own business and I loved it. And my husband was working in London in IT, and, you know, very quickly, within, you know, a week or so, I realised, you know, I could say goodbye to my job and the business. That will close because I was looking after Fraser now and whatever he needed. And, you know, we were being told things like, you know, he might get epilepsy, he might have global developmental delay, he might be physically, you know, disabled, all these sort of big things, but we just don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. Well, it's just, you know, really hard to take on board. That level of uncertainty is really, really challenging.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I suppose generally there is some sort of diagnosis, isn't there? And then there might be a community within that diagnosis.
Exactly.
But you never had that.
No, not really. They were saying things like charities contact a family. They can perhaps put you in, you know, with other families that have sick children. But that's not necessarily, I mean, that's a great charity, by the way. But it wasn't sort of so relevant to us at the time. What we needed was more of an understanding of what was going to happen to him. Yeah. So we could, you know,
meet his needs.
Exactly. Yeah. What were his needs going to be?
Yeah.
And I found,
and therefore, what were your needs going to be as well?
And how your life could then change and find your routine and everything else that goes with it.
Exactly. So it was really, really hard. And, you know, his underlying condition meant that he was likely to, if he picked up a cold, it would really challenge his energy systems. So he would have, you know, it could have been threatening to pick up just an everyday cold. So going into standard baby activities in the local community was really challenging.
So even more isolating.
So where did he belong? And
where did you belong?
Yeah,
it's kind of all of you, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because we were a family, and we wanted to be a family and have those family experiences. Yeah, I just and I look back at it now, I think, gosh, how did we sort of muddle through? And he would have to go into the local hospital fairly regularly if he was showing signs of being acidotic, so his blood getting quite a lot of acid in his blood, lactic acid, and he would show signs of that with being fast breathing. So you could never take your eyes off him. He was sort of 24 hours constantly
on
looking,
high alert, in a way.
And it was in one of those trips in where they were doing blood tests and stuff. I just noticed a little A5 sign on a notice board saying, "Are you a carer?" And this is your local 2 people that run a local caring sort of charity, if you like, and contact us. And I suddenly thought to myself, well, am I? Am I a carer as well? I know I'm a mum, but does it mean that I'm also a carer? Because I am looking after him 24 hours a day. Nobody said it to me, but I think I probably am. And but should I even bother them? Because they're a small charity, and they'll probably just say, well, actually, you're a mum, so this is the job that you do, which of course I wanted to do anyway. But I just kind of felt the way it was worded, it was brilliant, and I did pick up the phone to them, and they were amazing. And it was through listening and coming round and having a cup of tea and just sort of realising the sort of enormity, I suppose, of what we were facing, that they were so brilliant at being able to go to the place that I think one of the medical experts needed to have done, which is you need to start looking at palliative care. You need to start thinking about end-of-life care or some sort of support network or families that are in a similar position to you. And they were able to be that sort of bridge into that environment, and they handled it so beautifully, I have to say. And then that's when Christopher's Children's Hospice came on board for us.
So in some ways, even though you're talking about palliative care, it also sounds like it was a real lifeline.
Yeah, and to it also, I suppose, acknowledge that I actually was a carer as well.
Yeah.
That
was validated. Your role was different to just, the mum bit.
Exactly.
There was actually that carer role too.
And they of course, in their fantastic sort of outreach work, were able to come and see us and explain.
This is the hospice.
Yes, this is the hospice. Yes. Explain, what it actually meant. Do you understand really, and kind of have you accepted that your child is life limited? Because you can't really accept to go into, I think, that sort of outreach kind of program if you haven't really understood or wanted to accept that your child is life limited. And he was about 10 months old, and at that point they had reached the conclusion that although they couldn't name it, it was this technical description of what was wrong with the cells in his body, not being able to make energy efficiently and store it, and mean that this was the likely outcome, that he would die in infancy. So
okay,
that's
how was that for you and your husband when you heard that?
It was. I think we had slowly got to that point ourselves. Really, we could see the signs, and it was clearly devastating.
Of course,
clearly devastating, because we were completely smitten by him.
Yeah.
He was absolutely adorable. And you just couldn't comprehend it. I mean, you could see he had challenges. You can see, I think he had his first seizure about 7 months, and that was witnessed, fortunately, up at the Evelina. So we had some good feedback about that, and he was put on some good medication quite early on to help. But I think, it was just a sort of, how do you reconcile all the hopes and dreams that you had all those months ago when we were expecting him, and all that joy of having him and just thinking it was just the most amazing thing in the world ever, because he was, and then thinking it's going to be taken away from you. And you didn't care. I didn't care, like if he had dots all over him or whatever. I loved him just for what he was. Completely. And that was a really hard thing to do. And also just to try and understand that as a parent that you were now so responsible for this child, not just physically being able to look after him, which we were both able to do. And my husband had fantastic support through his company as well. But it was you realise you have to make decisions about what you want to include in your child's life, what is going to be important for that child to experience. Marriage, them having children, marriage, having relationships, that sort of thing were out of the cards. You couldn't think about that.
Yeah,
you couldn't think about even going to school, even having that experience. You just couldn't. All of that was gone. But so you're then forced to think, what is important and what could he have
that we've got
in this time that would be good for him to have. And one of the things for me was to have an independent relationship with somebody else, and like a friendship that he developed on his terms with somebody else.
That was something you knew that you wanted for him.
Yeah. I didn't want his whole world, however important it is that he has a mum and dad that loves him and grandparents and aunties and uncles and close friends and all of that. That's very important. But I wanted him to experience a friendship on his terms. Yeah. And he did have that through Vicky at Christopher's. Yeah. And that's the music therapist that came on board.
Tell us more about Vicky then.
So Vicky Cameron is, quite frankly, an astonishing lady. She was one of the first people through Christopher's Children's Hospice to sort of reach out to us and listen to us as a sort of a family, and really try and understand where we were coming from and the things that we wanted and having these kind of conversations. And as a music therapist, she was able to offer us weekly music therapy sessions for Fraser, which was fantastic because both my husband and I are musical. We love music. Music would have been something, I think, that he would have been encouraged to participate in.
So a real link for all of you.
Exactly. And it represented us and our family. And I was interested to see whether Fraser would also take that on board. And he seemed to. We got a little piano at home, and he seemed to really react to music from our interventions with him. And she was just fantastic, really, because she understood the struggles that I was having, particularly not having a routine, because not being able to go to the mums and baby groups and all that sort of stuff. So I think unusually for a children's hospice, they were able to do something quite different to the norm, which is instead of offering respite for us to maybe use the flat there while Fraser was being supported, or for them to take Fraser for a few days while we had a break. That wasn't going to work for us because his condition could change so quickly and it was so complex that she said, well, let's set your routine up. So we've got a weekly routine for you and we'll base it out of here. So Monday mornings was music therapy with Vicky, and then Tuesdays hydrotherapy, and we had a lovely dry cider volunteer come in to help us do that. And then there was play groups later on in the week within the hospice. So it was fantastic. We had a reason to get up and get out every day as much as we could when we weren't being restricted by the fragility of his condition. And he absolutely, whenever he saw her, his eyes lit up. And just as much on the other side, I think Vicky's sort of abundance of positivity and enthusiasm just came flying into the room with her, and like the two of them just hit it off, I suppose. And
what a lovely relationship.
Oh, completely. And what was magic about it was he used to have those music therapy sessions with Vicky in the music room. I didn't participate in that.
So he had his own independent
time.
He did. An own independent relationship.
Exactly. And it was great. I had the staff and the other parents and just some time for me, which they supported me, and they were fantastic. And I learnt quickly to realise that that was important for me as well, and that I did need support.
And a community.
Yeah, and a community, exactly.
Yeah.
And a routine.
Exactly. Because it was always seemed to be the way that if he was going to get poorly, he'd get poorly at the end of the week and he'd end up being in hospital over the weekend. So it was kind of like a driver for us to sort of say, come on, Fraser, we've got to get yourself, got to get you better. We've got Vicky on Monday. You can't miss Vicky.
Yeah.
So that was extremely helpful to have that routine, and it gave us a focus, and it felt like we were moving forward, like everybody else was moving forward. We weren't witnessing life, other people living their lives.
Yeah.
We were living a life. And I think it's very interesting for people to look at and think about maybe a children's hospice being, or any hospices being, a place where people die. They do. We have to acknowledge that, but they're also very much a place where people can live.
Yeah. Oh, and support. And,
completely.
The warmth that you can get from them is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So did it feel like, you mentioned earlier that you felt originally like you were on this different track. How would you describe that metaphor changing when you were involved with them and the community that you felt there? Was it, you didn't any longer feel like you were on your own track? You felt like you were...
Well, I think, the clinical side of things just reiterated all the time the end, if you like, or the progression towards the end. It was always quite a negative look at things.
Yeah.
And that was a very sort of stark reminder of what everybody else was doing, because they're always looking at the progression in a positive way with what's happening with their child. So what the hospice does, and magic people like Vicky in there, is that they just look at how you and your child can flourish.
Yeah.
And through music therapy, Fraser did flourish. And they're only looking at how they can support you in that way. We're looking at the abilities of the child, not the disabilities, as it were. I mean, they're completely mindful and able to cope with that. That wasn't that it wasn't a great unsaid. We could talk about that whenever we chose to.
But the focus was on life.
Exactly.
Even though there was a limit to it.
Exactly. And
it wasn't like everyone was denying what was going on.
No.
It was a real, this is happening and we are going to...
Yeah, and let's celebrate this. This is like, he did some fantastic thing with the chimes today, or he got really frustrated, but that was great because he did something and he couldn't quite do whatever he wanted to do, but he managed to figure it out in the end, kind of thing. Or
so an achievement.
It's an achievement, and he had all of that relationship with her on his terms. They had that on both their terms.
Empowering
really.
For him.
Yeah, completely. And I don't want to say it's a tick the box, but it felt right that he had that experience. I think so it was really important to me that he could do that. Just
briefly, I know you are a music therapist, and for people that are listening or watching and they don't understand what music therapy is, could either of you explain?
I'm happy to do that, but it would be nice also to hear your experience too. Yeah. I mean, I'm not practicing anymore, but my experience is that it's very much like psychotherapy, except you're providing this space, and again, it's looking at the different spaces in which you work in as a music therapist, hospice being one of them, where you're doing all the same things in terms of expressing emotions, giving a sense of identity and worth, and all the things that we do as a psychotherapist, but using music and improvisation, often improvisation as a way of finding a different language really to express that. Yeah. And I think that sometimes, particularly when, even with people who have words, that's a really lovely outlet for people to find a way of expressing themselves without having to use language. Yeah. So it's like a different language. As well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a real creative, and we've all got musicality, we've all got a rhythm of our heartbeats. We've got all sorts of ways, tiny, even people who are perhaps very physically disabled, there's often like the breath or a tiny movement, and you can tune in with improvisation and instruments, and enabling people to try and find their own music if they can, using percussion instruments or similarly. Things to make that relationship, but the key is the relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what you're describing that Fraser had with Vicky, and I know Vicky too, and she's just spectacular. She's gorgeous, and I can really hear, I can imagine them together, and of course we'll refer to your book in a bit, but seeing the picture of Fraser with Vicky. Beautiful boy with the wind chimes, and it just shows so much, that photo of it captures something.
Exactly, yeah, completely. And I think, Ros, the way you describe music therapy was really beautiful, by the way, and completely well, I can't think of how you can describe it any better. I think it was wonderful, and I think for Fraser, it allowed him agency to express himself in a very safe place. He trusted Vicky. He learnt how to have that kind of relationship, and I think that was really important. And so, yeah, music therapy, particularly in the palliative care setting where we were, was a way of letting children express themselves, their feelings. It also allowed siblings to have a say, and there was work I think Vicky did along with siblings and also the wider family as well.
It's the whole unit, isn't it?
Exactly. There were times when we were involved, and that was very special too, because we all had a voice and we all had a say in that very joint experience.
Yeah.
We created
Sounds
something.
so connecting.
Yeah, completely. Yeah,
the thread that sort of goes through all of you. The thing in your chapter in the book, I found it really touching, and I know Vicky has set up this program. I think it's with the Philharmonic.
Yeah, Royal Philharmonic
Orchestra.
Yeah,
I wondered if you could just talk about that, because I found that really touching as well.
Yeah, so this is really fantastic. Vicky and her wonderful connections with people got the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra players, a group of people from the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in London, to come in and run a 3-day workshop where they experimented, created, listened to the children, let the children create their own music with these fantastic musicians in preparation for a performance at the end of those 3 days. So it was, the whole experience felt unbelievably exciting.
I can imagine, I can feel it even when you're describing it now.
Because, well, firstly, I had that thing that other parents do, which is dropping their kids off.
Yeah.
I dropped him off, and I had a team of carers that were really well trained and understood Fraser, and I was always just a phone call away if they needed me, so it's fine. And he went for a few hours for those 3 days each day, and I didn't participate in any of it. It was all going to be a big surprise and a big reveal at the end. And after every music session with Vicky anyway, and particularly after these workshops, he was so animated, he was so switched on, he was so able to enjoy other aspects of life. It's like a key that opens up, I think, a child's soul, if you like. And I think it was amazing to see him really be able to experience so much more out of life just by having had this music therapy time. And anyway, so it was great anticipation that this big performance was put on in the evening. I think it was like a Friday evening or something, and grandparents were invited and parents were invited, and we all had to go and had to drop him off earlier in the day. And, there was a stage and everything at the Children's Hospice. It was absolutely amazing. And we all had seats, we sat down, and then they just performed. And the way...
Goodness. What was that like?
I've never experienced anything like it. The atmosphere in that room was incredible. And
I bet it was electric.
It was electric. And there was a complete synergy between the musicians and the children, and the carers. The whole team were just working as a team and listening, and some of the teenagers there had written their own music and were performing that. That was incredible. And then just listening to how they all interacted with each other and how they all listened to each other and how they all wanted, I think, very much to be in that space. You could see the reaction.
It sounds so rewarding for everybody.
It was.
Just thinking that.
Really lovely. And also I'm thinking about all the relationships, the relationship, because I know one of the things that you said in the book, it's like, all the nativities, all the things that Fraser wouldn't have been able to necessarily reach. And here he was on a stage.
I had a complete
performing.
proud mum moment, like there he was, he was, I knew he was never going to be a shepherd or a star or a Christmas tree or whatever it is they put into nativities these days. He just wasn't. So this was, it's not even the next best thing. It was the equivalent of, I suppose, in our world. And the people that came from the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra as well, they were just extraordinary human beings, and they really wanted to be there, and they really wanted that whole experience, and that came across too. And the sort of after show, honestly the excitement. This is a children's hospice, right? This place where children die. Yeah, they do, but not that night. That night was full of just energy, love, pride, accomplishment, joy. Oh, just, Do
you know, the thing that strikes me about everything that you're describing, and I was thinking about that sort of thread that you talk, and of course there's that thread of music that runs through, is the word love. And it feels like there's so much love that goes into that environment that you had, that your husband, everybody, every carer, like you say, the people from the Philharmonic Orchestra, it feels so filled with love.
Yeah, because I suppose it makes you realise what is important in life.
It's like that value, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Precious.
And there's many things that I think about Fraser's life, many beautiful things about his life that you can reflect on. And I think one of the things I have reflected on, and my husband has, is that you had to live in the moment, because the now and all it contained was all that you had.
Yeah.
And so you didn't know when his time's going to be up. So enjoy it now. Even in the really tough times, and there were many tough times, goodness me, when we were in hospital, and blood tests and operations, and it was just, still you counted your blessings, and you got through those, and you tried to do it with positivity, because being down would just be wasting time. And there was too much good stuff to be done and good stuff to be had. And certainly the hospice was one of those environments where that could happen, actually.
Yeah. And setting down loads of memories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know it's, that we're talking about something that was so full of life. And then, of course, it, I guess, carried on until the point of Fraser's death. And, what, in a way, in terms of that environment and leading up to his death, and also perhaps his post his death, could you just speak a little bit about that and the community?
We thought Fraser was doing okay. He'd had a big operation in the summer to remove his NG tube, nasal gastric tube, and have a tummy line peg put in just for feeding, and we thought, well, that was quite a big step, and he was doing okay. And then a few months after that, he just wasn't quite right, and then we were doing our sort of usual Friday night trip into the hospital, but he just deteriorated really, really quickly. And
how old was he at this time?
So he was 2 years, almost 4 months old. And I think the decision on the hospital ward was, okay, so we've spoken to London, and we need to get him into a location which has got an ECMO machine, which is a heart and lung bypass machine, and there's only one available in the country at the moment, and that's in Glasgow. We can scramble a helicopter, but he's probably not going to make it. So decision time, basically. And the hospice have become such an important part of our life. It was our second home, if you like, that it just, my husband and I just looked at each other and we just knew. We didn't even have to have that conversation.
So you were really tuned into each other, weren't you?
And the two nurses on the ward, I have to say, that night were extraordinary. And they we decided we were going to take Fraser to the hospice. It was only 10 minutes away from the hospital, so it was a risk. He was very sick. We didn't know whether he was going to make it to the hospice. My husband drove, I sat in the back. The nurses were amazing. They gave us some pillows to take with us and got us out the hospital via a back exit, so we weren't basically being viewed by people, I suppose. But he did make it there, and as soon as we got to the doors, and of course they were waiting for us, his little legs started to go, just started to move, because he knew where he was. His last little bit of energy, I suppose, to keep going. He was, that excitement of being there. So
really validating in terms of your decision.
Yeah, I mean, you hope you made the right decision. I like to think that we've made the right decision, and certainly talking to the staff and clinic, we were heading in the right direction, I think. Anyway, so expecting him to sort of go that night, he rallied for another 5 days.
Did he?
Wow.
Yeah, and during that time, Vicky was there to give us joint family.
So he was in the hospice?
Yeah, in the hospice. We stayed, and we obviously didn't leave his side, and he was able to have music therapy with the family, and even my dad, Fraser's granddad, was involved, and it was just amazing. And then his last few hours, we invited Vicky into the room, and where there was a piano, and Ian, my husband, plays the piano. He played pieces that he'd written, and that was important that he played for Fraser. And also for Vicky, came and played her music that in relation to what she would do. Yeah, exactly.
So their identity as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's saying, how brave is that, Vicky? Quite frankly.
Gosh, yeah.
And all the staff,
And your husband.
all of them, amazing. So, and then Fraser passed away, and we were hugely supported again by the hospital staff, and hospice staff, and Vicky came back and gave Fraser a music therapy session in the room where he was resting afterwards, which I thought was just really important, probably for both of them, actually. I mean, so,
This feels like, it just feels so heartbreaking to hear, doesn't it? It's really touching.
Really
all of it,
moving.
The pain, the joy, the life, and
because you've
everything
given
you've
him
been through.
the good life, but also a good death.
I hope so.
It sounds like
he was supported, and he was surrounded by love,
and so were you.
Absolutely,
we
were
that
supported.
sort of, you were all supported,
exactly.
and that lovely relationship that you had with the staff and with Vicky.
We were very lucky. We've been lucky in so many ways, but very lucky to have had a children's hospice in our hometown.
Yeah,
and where we could access it in the way that we did.
Yeah,
and I wish more families could have access to children's hospices in the way that we did, because they're invaluable.
So this kind of is, really, I mean, it's beautiful to hear about Fraser, about your experience through his life and his death, but also what I'm so amazed with is the lasting relationship that you've carried through with Vicky, probably the hospice, I imagine, and also to lead to this book that you've co-edited with Vicky, haven't you? Could you just talk a little bit, because I'm aware of the time.
Yeah, of course.
Could you talk a little bit about the book, because we'd really love people to hear about it.
Okay, thank you. Well, Vicky and I stayed in touch, obviously, and we've worked together off and on over the years to do presentations and talk about our experience. But it was about 3 years ago now that Vicky and I got back in touch. She wanted to use some photos in a slide presentation, and she just happened to say, well, let's just meet up and let's just talk about where we're at. And I had offered to help her at any time, and she said, well, what about doing a book? It's like, well, I wasn't expecting that. And it's like, okay, how do we do that? We know that we're both passionate about hearing families' voices,
Yes.
and hearing their side of the lived experience, I suppose.
Yeah.
So how do we do that more? It has been covered in music therapy, very good music therapy books that have been out there, but there's still not enough said, particularly about paediatric palliative care and music therapy. How do we do it? And we thought, well, we're collaborating, so why don't we put it out there to some music therapists to speak to families that they know and see if they can collaborate on their own chapters. And how they go about collaboration will be down to them. So each chapter is very different. Each style, the way they've approached it is very different. And it's brilliant because of that.
Yeah.
Because it makes you realise that so much more needs to be heard.
Yeah.
So much more needs to be said, and so much more needs to be explored with the area of music therapy in paediatric palliative care.
And who in particular do you want to get that message out to?
Well, I would say probably anyone that's funding a music therapy or interested in doing music therapy within children's palliative care settings. So just to say how important it is and how life-changing it can be for the families involved. So it's been fundamental. We're really proud of this book. The people that contributed, the families, the music therapy practitioners, the teams of people that we talk about. Some of the chapters are huge with regards to the number of families involved with teamwork and big projects. We're just so proud of it. We're very grateful for their time, the way that they've approached the book, the way they've been so open about their experiences. Both,
and the book is called Music Therapy in Children's Palliative Care, Collaborative Family and Practitioner Voices.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll put the link in the show notes for anybody who wants to.
Julie Russell.
Yes.
Victoria Cameron.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you.
And it is it's beautiful hearing you and the story there, and also the legacy, isn't it? What a lovely way to keep Fraser's story alive, and your experience. And I think there's something so important, isn't there, where you say it's the family's experience. It's in the unit where at that hospice, what they gave you. Yeah. Quite incredible.
Absolutely. And I would say that all the families' voices in this book are incredible. Their stories are moving. Their children are amazing. And their experiences need to be heard and are very valued. So hopefully we will have a greater insight into that side of things and how it can influence better practice within music therapy courses as well, and teaching and understanding as well.
Absolutely. It's really giving like you said, the lived experience that you've had. It's really giving voices to people, isn't it?
Exactly.
And spreading the word.
Exactly.
It's fantastic. It's beautifully done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. I am choked up here.
It's so touching.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me and giving me the chance to talk about Fraser, and it's been lovely to be able to share him with you, so thank you.
So thanks everyone for listening or watching the episode today with Jules, and we found, as we said at the start, it was very moving. We expect you did too. It's a difficult listen but also joyful.
Inspiring.
Yeah. Please do continue to share your likes and share this podcast with your friends, and comment on this episode if there's something you'd like to say about it.
Spread the word, because we want as many people to benefit from these episodes as we can get, really, can't we?
Yeah.
So and thank you for being with us.
See you next time.